Hello and welcome to the 101st edition of Liege, Bastogne Liege, Le Doyen as it's called, an event which was first organised back in 1892. It earns the name La Doyenne because it is the oldest race on the international calendar. As you can see, we're looking down on the main field and they really are turning up the screws at the moment. They've reached the turning point down at the bottom end of the course. Let's have a look at the last 10 years of winners. Simon Gerrans, the winner last year, defending champion back here. Dan Martin, who crashed in the final corner. Maxime Iglinski. Philippe Gilbert, who was a local rider, lives at the bottom of the Côte de la Redoute. He was injured last week in the Flèche Wallonne. He's hoping to ride well today. Andy Schleck, winner in 2009. Alejandro Valverde, two-time winner and the big favourite for today. As we look at the main field, the riders left very early this morning at around about 10:30 local time. 59 times Belgium has won this race, 12 times it's been won by the Italians, and a little bit further down, Ireland have won it 3 times, and of course the United States has won it once with Tyler Hamilton, and that was well back in 2003. At the start, a lot of people turning out to see the big stars who were lining up. Jean-Francois Pecher on the right-hand side, former organizer, with Michael Kurkovsky, the world champion and winner of the Amstel Gold Race. Simon Gerrans back from injury, breaking his collarbone in the early part of this season. Enrico Gasparotto, 8th in the Amstel. Pierre Rolland could be an outsider. And of course the French may well be counting on Tony Galopin. And Jelle Wenendert was 2nd in the Amstel Gold Race 12 months ago. What about the young Tim Wellens, won last year's Eneco Tour. Julian Alaphilippe of Ethics and Frank Schleck, the current Luxembourg national champion. All big names signing on in the early part of the day. And of course Domenico Pozzovivo, recently a winner of a stage of the Tour of Trentino. Joaquim Rodriguez, 4th in the Flèche Wallonne just a couple of days ago, just ahead of his teammate. And what about Nairo Quintana, the winner of the Giro d'Italia? He's ridden up in the northern part of this the continent this year to try and get himself ready for some Tour de France stages. And of course Alejandro Valverde, big favourite. Vincenzo Nibali, 2014 Tour de France winner, and the local favourite, Philippe Gilbert, lives on the race route and of course a popular man. Well, the riders moved away from the Palais des Princes Évêques, and that was at 10:15 this morning before making their way down to the official start about 15 minutes later. And let's not forget they head right down into Bastogne, and that's where the turning point is, at the centre of the Battle of the Bulge, led by General Patton in 1944. The main field at this point, when they got down to the turn, had a gap of 5 minutes and 15 seconds, but Team Europe car decided to come to the front and put the pressure on, and as we speak there's an 8-man breakaway off the front of the main field. They got clear after 31 kilometers, and they're now, well, this is when they went over the Côte de Saint-Roch, a climb of 1 kilometer, and when they got to the Côte de Saint-Roch the gap started to come down. It's currently sitting on 3 minutes. The riders in that 8-man breakaway, Diego Ulissi, Marco Minard, Rasmus Cade of Cult Energy, Otto Verhaarde, Clement Chevrier, Anthony Turgis, 20 years of age, Cesar Bendetti and Mateo Monteguti of AG2R. Let's have a look at the race route. So that's where the riders go, mainly in a southerly direction to begin with, as they get down there to the turning point in Bastogne. And then that's when the menu starts to get a little bit more interesting, because inside of the last 80 kilometers of the race are 8 of the big climbs that make this race so very, very difficult. Have a look at the profile there. You can see all the climbs that stacked down towards the end. It's all very important, but the change in the race route to bringing back the Col du Rosier and the Col de Maquisard, a lot of riders feel that that could make it a very difficult race, much more selective than it has been over the last few years. The gap now, as you can see, the grey skies up above the race has started to come down. It's down to 2.5 minutes. This 8-man leading group had a maximum lead of 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Well, the weather, 14 degrees Celsius, not the warmest day of spring so far. In fact, a little bit better than the weather conditions yesterday, when a number of amateur riders were able to participate in the cyclo-tourist event over the same routes as these riders, from Liège down to Bastogne and back. And here's confirmation of the names that I just gave you in this leading group of riders. Well, hello and welcome to everybody who's watching on the NBC live streaming, and we're happy to have you here. This is a very great race, as I said, started way back in 1892. The main field, as you can see on the front, a lot of work is being done by Team Europcar. The gap down to 2.5 minutes. Europcar, I think, probably putting the pressure. A lot of people have been walking up and down the commentary position saying, why are Europcar riding like this? Well, in fact, Pierre Rolland, who rides for Europcar, has just come into this race of some very good form. And in fact, just recently off a stage victory in the Vuelta Castilla y León and the overall classification as well. He's a former winner of 2 stages of the Tour de France, and it's pretty much thought that Thomas Voeckler, the team captain on the road, is trying to put some pressure onto Pierre Rolland to do a good ride a little bit later on. Rolland needs this race to be difficult, as we get a chance to see just exactly what is happening in the main field. As we said a little earlier, the Belgians have won this race 59 times. The last Belgian winner, Philippe Gilbert, in 2011. This is the early morning breakaway. They got clear after just 31 kilometers of racing, and then for quite some time one rider was chasing Moreno Hoffman. He got to as close as 2.5 minutes, but then started to fade, and the 8-man leading group continued to build on their advantage till they got close to 8 minutes, and then the main field started to pick up the pace. And as we can see right now, we're looking at 104 kilometers to go. Big question mark over Simon Gerrans as to whether or not he can come back and repeat his victory of last year. He started his season off not the way he wanted to. He wasn't able to defend at the Santos Tour Down Under, but he broke his collarbone. He fought his way back, and he said at the end of the Amstel Gold Race last week that the legs were starting to feel quite good, but the big question mark for him was riding into that first race over the 200-kilometer mark, and said he felt not too bad. He went away and trained and didn't ride the Flèche Wallonne and got himself ready for today's race. Nice little factoid for you. The rider we're looking at here, by the way, I'm commentating not too far away from Richard Virenque. Well, the birthday of the rider there, just on the far side, as you can see him, Verhade from Top Sport Vlaanderen. He was born on the 15th of July 1994, and that was the day that Richard Virenque won a mountaintop finish at Luz Ardennes in the Tour de France. So I'm sure Richard will get quite emotional if he sees this young man get himself a victory on today's stage. But the gap coming down, just look at this now. It's a lot of pressure. All these teams now starting to get themselves organized. This is the Lotto.nl Jumbo team from Holland. They're obviously working for their man who they feel has got a very good chance today, and that would be Wilco Kelderman. Kelderman rode well in the early parts of this week, and in fact he's the man that they will count. He was 10th in the Flèche Wallonne. You can see the organisation now starting. Everybody's starting to get themselves ready because they want to be in a good position when they get to Côte d'Ouane. But because once you go over the Côte d'Ouane, you then drop down into the small town of Stavelot and go over the climb of Stockeur. Now Stockeur is just about wide enough to get one motor vehicle over, so the riders are only 3 or 4 riders wide, and if you get caught at the back, somebody has a mechanical incident, you can lose yourself a couple of minutes over the top of the climb, and then a long hard chase down back into Stavelot and through and start the climb of the Haute Levée. So it's important. Positioning is so important in this race. You see people taking the risks. That's the Dutch Lotto squad in the yellow jerseys. The gap down to 1 minute and 40 seconds. By the way, the French rider in the breakaway, Anthony Turgis of Team Cofidis, he was also the winner of the under-23 Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year. Valverde's men in the blue and lime green jersey of Movistar, they're very keen to keep themselves to the front, and as you can also spot there peeping through as well, Cannondale Garmin. Big question mark over there, man. The Irish rider Dan Martin, pretty much banged up after a nasty crash a couple of days ago, but even Philippe Gilbert, who was involved in the crash in the Flèche Wallonne, said if it was any other race on the calendar he wouldn't have started today. He lives on the course, he lives not too far away from the bottom of the Côte de la Redoute, and he really wants to be in this race. He's participated, by the way, as Philippe Gilbert in this race 13 years in a row. He's never missed it, and despite that nasty crash a couple of days ago. Well, 1.5 minutes. It's down to around about the kilometre mark. There's the rider I mentioned just a little earlier, just sitting on the back there, the rider who was the winner last year of the under-23 version of this race, and that, of course, is Anthony Turgis. He's 20 years of age. He was second in the under-23 Paris-Roubaix as well, so he's a young rider on the way up. There are two 20-year-olds in the breakaway this afternoon. The other rider in the breakaway is Otto Verhade of Team Top Sport Vlaanderen. They've all worked well together. They managed to survive that early morning breakaway. They had a little bit of a headwind in the first half of this race down to the turning point in Bastogne. And now the fact is that this race, once we start the climbs of Wanne, Stokke and Haute-Levée, the wind doesn't play that much of a major factor because we zigzag in and out of the forest, and they will get a little bit of protection from the blustery weather conditions. And having said that, the dark clouds of rain were starting to come into the finishing line here over Anse, all of a sudden Lady Sunshine has come out once again. Stokke is a climb of 12.5%, so the Côte d'Ouen is a longer climb, and that's the next climb on the agenda for these riders. That comes in at about 2.5 kilometres in length, and it's 7.4%. Movistar stopping quickly there with a slight problem. Orica Greenedge were also not too far away from it. I think Simon Gerrans, you know, Simon Gerrans is a very, very clever rider. He knows how to nurse his body through an event like this, and so he will, I think, play a waiting game to see how the race develops at just a little bit later on. A huge number of English-speaking riders in the event. 8 riders from the United States, 8 riders from Australia, 4 riders from South Africa, 4 from Ireland, and 2 from Great Britain. The biggest number of participants, of course, coming from France. And the French, I think, really today will be counting on 2 riders. Pierre Rolland, the French rider on Europcar, the man who has won 2 stages in the Tour de France, but 1 to the top of the Alpe d'Huez. Now here is the Côte d'Ouen. There were the statistics for you very, very briefly. I'll just repeat them. 2.7 kilometers. It's about 2 miles. That's not a good place to have a problem, just over on the left-hand side. And 7.4%. Battling his way through. This is Luis Leon Sanchez. Fabulous rider. A very, very good individual time trialist. And again, not the ideal place to have a little bit of a problem while you're trying to get back into the main field. Sammy Sanchez, his namesake, is also in here for Team BMC. He'll be looking after the interests of Philippe Gilbert and maybe TJ Van Garderen. It'll be interesting to see how the American TJ Van Garderen rides a little bit later on as well. But Luis Leon Sanchez, he won the King of the Mountains in the Vuelta a España last year. Now, well, there we go. That's out for the count. Otto Verhade, 20 years of age, as I said just a little bit earlier on, one of the young riders in the breakaway group. He's been in the lead for something like 130 kilometers. This break getting clear after just 31 kilometers of racing. And now it's, as I say, we're getting to the tough part of this race. Now this, oh, look at the gap. All of a sudden, it's down to 49 seconds. The referees are pulling all of the men out of the gap. The Cult Energy rider, Rasmus Rukade there. He's the rider who was 2 times Danish national champion. But look, on the right-hand side, Astana. Far away, Orica Greenedge as well. Liege, Bastogne, Liege. 253 kilometers of racing, 157 miles. But this now, I think, really is the crucial part of the race. You can see it's all starting to fall apart. The other rider coming out of the back, Clément Chevrier, the 22-year-old Frenchman, who was 12th overall last year in the USA Pro Challenge in Colorado. Well, as you can see, it is springtime here in the Ardennes, but the weather not really reflecting that. Around about 14 degrees Celsius. And the fact that they predicted a wet and windy day, I think a lot of riders are going to be very happy with that. As they move away now, they really are starting to pick up an advantageous tailwind. Chevrier, IAM Cycling, he's been left behind as we now head up towards the top of the Côte d'Ouen. But the gap back to the main field, which is under a lot of pressure from Team Astana, is down to 45 seconds. On the top slopes of this climb, they will certainly be able to see the breakaway group, and that will give them a chance. And there will be just a general acceleration in the main field behind, because everybody knows that this is the Côte de Stocker, which has got a statue to Eddy Merckx at the top of it. Will be an important place to be well positioned in the main field. Number 77, the rider you can see there, that's Mateo Monteguti. He's the Italian rider on Team AG2R, the oldest rider in the breakaway, actually, at 31 years of age. Ulissi is the Lampre rider in the middle of that pack. He's 25 years of age, probably the most experienced and successful rider in the breakaway, with 3 stage victories in the Giro d'Italia. Beautiful view of the Ardennes out there. Still a very big main field, and well, these are the riders. That's Verhaarde of Topsport Vlaanderen. He's getting picked up. Kade of Cult Energy, the Danish rider, 25 years of age. But as it was said just a little bit earlier on, I think almost certainly we are likely to see a possible move coming from Vincenzo Nibali. A lot of riders, it's one of those well-kept secrets that Vincenzo Nibali has said that he would really like to try and win this race. He was beaten a couple of years ago when Maxim Iglinski came up to him right down towards the end, and he just lost everything. The lights went out, sound was gone, and he was beaten. And ooh, a little bit precarious at the back. This is why you want to ride near the front end of the main field. That was Calvin Watson, I think, at the back of the group there, having a little bit of a problem. So too far away for the 5 leaders now to get themselves up to the summit of the Côte d'Ouen. Kilometre to go. A few more move. Kurkovsky as well. Now that is interesting, that the world champion Kurkovsky, there were a lot of Polish people, by the way, at the start, and they were really making a lot of noise to support their world champion, a man who just a week ago was the winner of the Amstel Gold Race. He too is being very attentive. We're still a long way to go to the finish. We've just gone inside of 77 kilometers to go to the finish. The 5 men, these are the survivors of the early morning breakaway. Monteguti is the rider doing the pacemaking on the descent. Rider from Wanty on the back here is Marco Minar. He's a Dutch rider, 2nd-year professional. Cofidis rider just in front of him is Anthony Turgis of France, 20 years of age. Ulissi, a little bit further forward, he's only 25. Cesar Vendetti of Bora Argon is in there as well, and Monteguti is the man making the descent as we head down into Stavolo. This is the next man on the road, and they drop down, as you can see, the very nasty road here, lots of cobblestones as they move across the town square, and in fact all of a sudden the Astana rider has come straight across the gap there very, very quickly indeed. Well, as you can see, this is a very strange, the race referee pulling himself out of that gap very, very quickly. I think he's probably got surprised. The rider trying to come across there is Gorka Izagir of Movistar. He's coming across the gap just to make sure that Movistar are represented, because what it'll do is it'll take some pressure off Movistar if the breakaway stays clear a little bit longer, because obviously the big man for Movistar today is, of course, Alejandro Valverde. It's an ideal finish for a rider like Valverde. He thought he was going to get the victory last year, but he was outfoxed and outsmarted by a certain Australian by the name of Simon Gerrans. And big question mark over Gerrans today. Has he got the... I mean, this is a very, very difficult race. We're talking 253 kilometers, a good 6 hours of racing. Gerrans coming back from a nasty injury in the first part of the year. He knows this race. He loves this race. He would certainly like to try and win again if he can. We've gone through Stavolo now. The gap a little bit further back is still half a minute. This is now the climb of the Haute Levée. And Haute Levée, by the way, means lifted up high. and it certainly does get lifted up high. If you continue over the top of Haute-Levée and keep going straight down towards Francorchamps, you'll come very quickly to the motor racing circuit, where a certain Mexican rider by the name of Raúl Alcala won a stage of the Tour de France many years ago. Trying to get himself across the gap. There's Haute-Levée, Katusha on the left-hand side. Just having a little look further back. There's Zdeněk Stybar of Czech Republic, Ethics Quicksteps. Quickstep have got a very good team here, and there is Kurkovsky, the world champion there, wearing number 21, not too far away. Simon Clark, the Australian of Orica Green Edge. Body scrambling, just keeping a very close eye. This is from the top here of Haute-Levée. It's a big wide boulevard, and it heads right the way down towards the motor racing circuit of Francorchamps. Looks like Clark himself who's made the move here. He's just looking, he can see the breakaway group in front of him. Grivko was the Astana rider, now there's another rider. That's the rider from the one team, Marco Minar. He's been dropped by the leading group. Very shortly he'll find himself back in the main field. In fact, it may well not be. I did see that moving up towards the front was Simon Clark, but that didn't look like Simon Clark. It may well have been Simon Yates, who Orica Green Edge were all very close to the front end of the main field. There's a little bit of a Stybar on the front there. Now, just a little bit further back, this is Tim Wellens. I would think that he's had a mechanical problem, because he's a rider that a lot of people felt could do something special. But you can see the damage here. This is wow. Also slipping backwards there, number 104, and that in fact was Tosh van der Sande. So Lotto really losing a lot of riders here. Now we're back with a leading group. 74 kilometers to go. Simon Yates is the Orica Green Edge rider who's popped onto the back, and noticed Simon Clark was close to the front. I don't think we'll see very much at all of Simon Gerrans until the latter part of the race. He'll try and do whatever he can to nurse his way through here, conserve as much energy as possible. It's a strange climb, this at Haute-Levée. You can just see the cement separator down the middle, and that makes it very difficult for the peloton to use this half of the road. 3 riders have got across that from Astana. There is Vincenzo Nibali, third position in the main field. Vasily Kirienka making a move for Team Sky. There's a lot of action now on Haute-Levée, and as I said, it is going to be a slightly different ride now from Haute-Levée all the way down towards the climb of the Côte de la Redoute, because pretty shortly after Haute-Levée they drop down a little bit, and then they start to line themselves up for the Côte de Rosier, and it's a long winding farm road to get themselves down to the Rosier, followed immediately again after that by the Côte de Maquisard. Well, quite interesting. There's a lot of damage already being done here because of the climb of Haute-Levée. Tim Wellens, youngster on the Belgian squad, Lotto, trying to get himself back into the race. They're using all of his courage here to pull himself back up. That's Bartosz Łazarski, the Polish rider on Bora Aragon. This is some serious damage now, and it's going to be very difficult for any of these riders, because of this new change in the race route, for them to get themselves back. And I mentioned this is a long, hard race for anybody at this time of the year. 253 kilometers, 157 miles of racing, and as you can see, it'll be interesting to see how the main field actually reacts once they start to get themselves across to the Rosier and the next climb of the day, the Maquisard. Another rider coming across from Astana, that's Fulsang, just getting onto the back there in the turquoise jersey of Team Astana. Now you can see this is a nice big wide boulevard, and this will give the group now a chance to organize themselves. And because of the fact that they're pretty much in the forested area for the moment, the wind is not going to be that much of an advantage for these riders. It's very sheltered, this next part of the course. Once they get just about down into the town of Francorchamps, then they'll have a left-hand turn onto a much smaller farm-type road to go down to the Côte de Rosier. Rosier is going to be the 6th climb of the race, and it comes in at around about 5 kilometers in length, 6% of the gradient. Interested to see the way this group has actually developed. They've attacked a long way out from the finish, and we had heard that Astana were going to try and toughen the race up and try and make the move a long way from the finish, and that could well be something that'll catch everybody out, because as I was talking to Sean Yates, the team manager of Tinkoff Saxo Bank, he said the problem is that when you make the race a little bit more difficult because of the profile, the riders get scared. They don't want to make the decisions till later on. They hold back more and more to conserve as much energy to make sure that they're good in the last couple of kilometers of the race. And sometimes what it does is it gives other riders the chance who are not concerned about holding back the ability to go for a long move. 21 riders in that group there, and it's pretty much Astana, I think, who are winding this all up. TJ Van Garderen, nice to see TJ looking over his shoulders, pulling out a little bit to see if he's going to get any help from anyone else. There's Philippe Gilbert. You can just see, look at the face on Philippe Gilbert on the far side, number 51. He's got the world champion bands around his shoulders. You can see the little bandage on his right elbow. That's from the crash a couple of days ago. In fact, the crash was a very nasty crash. It wasn't his fault, but the crash, in fact, broke his bike into a number of pieces. And once he got the spare bike from the team car, he tried to jump back onto the machine, but in fact, with the force of the crash, he'd actually twisted the cleats on his shoes, and he just could not pedal in the right way. So he said, well, I've lost so much time standing at the side of the road, and he decided to call it a day. And he's not the kind of rider that likes to abandon races. So it's a complete change, and now from the 5 riders we had leaving down into Stavelot, we've got 3 new riders starting to form. And in fact, just looking back there, they've got 10 or 12 seconds advantage over a fractioning group of about 25 riders. But if you look at the riders in that group, there's a lot of turquoise jerseys. These guys, and it's always good if you get into a breakaway group like this when you've got a teammate up alongside you, because you know I can really push it that little bit more, because if I go through a bad patch, I've got a teammate here to take over the responsibility, and they will really give it 110% because of the fact that they feel in a superior tactical position. But I still feel in the back of my mind that this is trying to lay down something for Vincenzo Nibali just a little bit later on. And this is the change to the course, as we mentioned, the parts where they took away the Côte de la Vecchie, which was used last year. A little bit of a long drag, the Côte de la Vecchie. These 2 climbs are bolted together in between Haute-Levée and the Côte de la Redoute. I think going to make it just that little bit more testing. And as you can see, these riders, they really have thrown caution. Within 61 kilometers to go, 44 seconds now to the main field, with only the pacemaking being done in that peloton by Katusha. Boaro is the rider from Tinkoff Saxo, the other rider Arredondo. That's Boaro, the Italian rider. The Tinkoff Saxo have not brought the big strong team that they will have later on in the year. Raphael Valtteri, he's very well supported at the start, by the way. The Polish rider who was a stage winner in the Tour de France last year, a great revelation of the Tour de France for Tinkoff Saxo Bank. And Mikhail Kurkovsky, Polish world champion. Now, having mentioned Movistar just a little bit earlier on, they are not too far away from the front. They're quite happy to ride around Alejandro Valverde. He was the 3rd place rider in that line of Movistar riders. There is Quintana. Look at that. This is the man who's won the Giro d'Italia. He came up to the northern part of Europe to ride. There's Purito, the last rider in the riders from Katusha. There's Maika. And there is Roman Krutiger just on the far side. So these riders taking this very, very seriously. There's the world champion, Mikhail Kurkovsky. Brilliant rider. Certainly was the top man last week. It looked as if, for me, Greg van Avermaet got himself the victory. It looks with meters to go as if he was going to run out the winner, but all of a sudden, popping out of there were Michael Kurkovsky, getting himself just his second win of the year after winning the prologue of the Paris-Nice race way back in March. Last year, by the way, Kurkovsky, who was still only 24 years of age, was the winner of, he finished 5th in the Amstel Gold Race, 3rd in Flèche Wallonne, 3rd in Liege, Bastogne Liege. So, the two riders who are dropped are at half a minute now, and it's almost a minute back to the main field with nobody quite yet ready to help out the pacemaking of Team Katusha. Looking back through the numbers of victories going back to the various nations, it always is a bit of a surprise to me to look and see that France has only ever won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which is really the kind of route that would suit the French rider's temperament. They've only won it on 5 occasions, and the man who won it back in 1980, the last Frenchman to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège, was Bernard Hinault, and there were only about 15 riders finished on that occasion because this race was run off very, very much in snowy conditions, and everybody was looking for any possible way to get themselves back to the finishing line in Liège. It was a horrendous day. I can tell you that from experience because I was there, and I flagged down a local supporters car, threw my bike in the back, and got down to Liège and watched the rest of the race on television. Back with the 3 leaders now. So the 3 leaders are Kanget, number 39, the rider from Astana. Just in front of him, Scarponi. And lodged in the middle for Oracle Green Edge is Chavez. These are the 2 chasers. They are now at around about half a minute. Guaro is the rider at the back with that fluorescent Tinkoff Saxo bank. He's looking over his shoulder to see how far behind. 500 meters from the summit of the Côte de Rosier. And that means that they will then start to line up for a little bit of a descent to drop down away into they just skirt around the outskirts of the town of Spa. And in fact, that's where Tinkoff Saxo stayed over the last couple of days, and so they will know the roads extremely well. I'm sure they went training over these roads. Drop down into Spa, across through the outskirts of Spa, where there is a casino. There's also a spa, and one of the famous Belgian waters hails from Spa, and then they will start the next climb, the Col de Marquisard, which is going to be very important this year because you drop away from that Col de Marquisard and drop down into Remouchon. Remouchon is that's where we start on Côte de la Redoute. Here's the top of the climb, 2 chasers, 48 seconds now. They're only about 10 or 11 seconds in front of the main field. Well, Scarponi rode very well just a couple of days ago as well, and he was 4th overall a couple of years back in the Giro d'Italia, 5th in 2013 in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Was one of his best seasons. He's an experienced rider, 35 years of age. Now all of a sudden, Movistar. This is well, they've got to be interesting to see because Nairo Quintana is riding up at the front end of the main field. I'm sure today team orders on Movistar are all for Alejandro Valverde. Valverde, he's had a great year. Started off winning in January with the Trofeo Serra da Tramontana. He was 3rd overall in the Tour of Oman, 3rd in the Strada Bianchi. He won 3 stages of the Tour of Catalonia, but lost out in the overall standings there to finish in 2nd. 2nd in the Amstel Gold Race a week ago, 1st in the Flèche Wallonne. He's the man to beat. All of these riders really struggling now just to stay in contact. That's a bit of a surprise there, just a little bit further forward. They're number 22, that's Julien Alaphilippe. He's a great rider in his own right, and unless he's trying to play the waiting game sitting at the back end of the group there, it's a bit of a surprise. He was 7th in the Amstel Gold Race and 2nd in the Flèche Wallonne, and thought a bit of an outside, but look at the pressure. This is a very, very difficult race. We're actually currently looking at about an hour to go. Those helicopters at the side of the event there, by the way. Those are the VIP helicopters. If you get the top ticket to come and see Liège-Bastogne, you can bounce around in one of those helicopters from A to B and enjoy a view from the side of the road, not getting involved in all the traffic jams of the spectators trying to get around. There is Vincenzo Nibali not far from the front end of the peloton there. I had him at around about 10th or 12th position. He looks to be floating around here quite well. Ted de la Course. Joan Chavez, great climber. Now he would come into his own once we get to the Côte de la Redoute. Côte de la Roche-au-Faucon, the cliff of the Falcons, is the penultimate climb of the day before dropping down, going around the football pitch of the Standard de Liège, or the soccer pitch, if you prefer to call it in American. In fact, Standard de Liège were beaten yesterday by Charleroi, so let's hope that the Belgians have a chance of coming back and getting one of their local riders from who lives 20 kilometers away from Liège, and Philippe Gilbert. He'll be looking to try and ride himself through the pain that you have in your body after a nasty crash like the crash that he had in Flèche-Wallonne just a couple of days ago. The 6 or 7 riders are just getting tailed off at the back end of the group, but this is a very clever, this is a strategic move, this is a well-planned move, and they decided, they had mentioned, as I say, when I spoke to a couple of the team managers this morning, they were all expecting a move a long way out from the finish line by Team Astana. When I spoke to Sean Yates and Alan Piper, they both said, we feel that there'll be a move even as far out as the Côte de la Redoute, but I'm sure even they weren't expecting a move to come on the Côte de Haute-Levée, because Haute-Levée is around about 80 kilometers to go to the finish. Raphael Valtteri in the fluorescent jersey there, just in front of Roman Kreuziger. Nairo Quintana in the Movistar jersey, keeping himself up to the front end of the main field. Michael Kurkovsky. Number 41, Dan Martin. Well, it's good to see Dan Martin there. You know, he's a great rider. Dan Martin. Oh, the squealer brakes. Oh, there's a crash on the left-hand side. I heard the squealer brakes. Doesn't look as if, well, there's a little bit of tearing to the shorts there, but that rider who went down quite hard, that's Dominique Neds, German rider, who's been helped by a spectator at the side of the road, and that's why I was a bit concerned about the position of Dan Martin. Oh, also Lamper got a rider involved in that. That's Raphael Valtteri. He had a great start to the season, Valtteri. In fact, he was the winner of a stage and the overall classification of the Tour of Oman, and finished 10th in the Tour de l'Avenir a few years back. Been a professional since 2009. Problem is, you can see the flat tyre, but that is not the ideal time to have a mechanical incident. He's going to have a very long, hard chase to get himself back into this one. Look at the faces of these riders. Stibar in the white jersey. Rider right up there as well from Team Sky. Sivtsov. Konstantin Sivtsov over on the far side. Venender from Lotto. This is one of the riders for the future there. Extremely good ride last week. He waited till the very last minute, leapt out of the pack to get himself that victory in the Amstel Gold Race. World champion, won that title last year in Montferrada. Very classy bike rider, but again, great to see these riders, the young riders coming through. Kurkovsky just 24 years of age. He turns 25 in June. Won 2 races this year. Won 9 races last year. Started off winning in February, but his biggest win obviously was that World Championships. He was 2nd overall in the Tour of Britain. Jose Herrada is the rider on the front for Team Movistar, doing the pacemaking, sacrificing himself. We're probably coming down to around about the last hour of racing, but in that last hour of racing we have got 3 climbs remaining. Climbs of very, very famous names. The Côte de la Redoute, the one that everybody knows is where the real crunch starts to happen. If the legs are starting to weaken a fraction, that's when you get to disposed out of the back of the peloton of Liège-Bastogne, down into Sprimont along the main road, and then you turn left and down into the small town at the foot of the Côte de la Roche-au-Faucon, and that's quite a long climb, the Roche-au-Faucon. It's about 2 kilometers long, 10% in gradient, and then the Côte de Saint-Nicolas down towards the end. The three leaders, they're losing a little bit of their advantage now, down to 41 seconds, but they're not worried about that. What the two riders on the front, Scarponi, sorry, who wears number 35 and can get the rider with him, they just want to toughen the race up, put pressure on all of the other teams to give their man Vincenzo Nibali an easy ride, and let's see what he can do. You know, with that gap at around about the 42-second margin, they are about 9 kilometers. Another big crash has been announced on the radio. Oh, a massive crash at the back end of the main field. There's one of the, Nicholas Roach is down there, number 111. Now this was really bad over on the far side there, number 43, Nathan Haas, the Australian rider's down in the gutter as well. This was a very, very nasty crash. Pierre, it looks there, that looks to me as if Pierre Roland has also gone down in that crash. Well, that was a very nasty crash. I heard it over the race radio before we actually got pictures of it. Roach, well, he was hoping for a good ride in this race. He's got the race doctor up alongside him, but it looks to me as if he's gone down very, very hard. Well, that's the end of Liège, Bastogne Liège for a couple of riders down. There's a lot of riders. Oh, Dan Martin over there as well, number 41. Well, the winner, well, there we go, moving across there, 133. That's Fabrice Jean Desbos. He's also gone down. Well, there's a lot of riders. They won't be seeing the front end of this race. Jose Serpa on the left-hand side. Frank Schleck caught out some big house. Well, I think I just saw Simon Gerrans as well. Well, that was a very, very nasty crash. Nathan Haas, he's not got any help. That's Nathan Haas in the top of the picture. You can just see Cannondale Garmin. Roach in the Sky jersey on the left-hand side. Number 6 has gone down. Daryl Impey, the South African. Look at that damage to that bike there. That's Jose Serpa on the left-hand side. He's riding away, number 161. That's Flores de Tir. Let's have a look at that, how that happened. It was right up at the front end of the main field, and I think the rider's in the middle. Once somebody's gone off the side of the road, somebody's touched the brakes, then everybody's gone down like a pack of cards. There's a leader of Team Cofidis also, Julien Simon. Oh, there's a lot of riders gone down very hard in that crash. Well, that'll cause a little bit of chaos and consternation in the main field. Back to the racing now. This is the road that the riders are very much used to. Now they're heading down towards Remouchon. Just looking at the left-hand side, it's in fact the rider from Europcar who went down very hard as well is Yukiya Arashiro, the Japanese rider, former Japanese national champion, by the way, from Europcar. They've done a lot of work in the early part of this race, so very, very, very sad to see an accident like this, especially when we're getting into the critical part of the race. There is the small river that runs through Remouchon. On the far side there, you can see the motorway. That is the start town. This is the hometown, in fact, of Philippe Gilbert. Nicholas Roach. Nasty little cut to the head. The Irish bands around his jersey there. Roach was hoping for a good ride. His dad did a good ride in this race a few years ago, and he was in a chasing group with Claude Criquillon, the former world champion, who sadly passed away earlier on this year from a heart attack. Criquillon always wanted to win this race. He won the Tour of Flanders, but he never managed to win the race, which was regarded for him as the championships of the Wallonie. Now, over the river. Remouchon pick their way through here. Once they swing across the river, they'll go through a narrow little street, and then they'll open up onto the Côte de la Redoute. But a lot of riders have gone down in that very, very nasty crash. 31 kilometers to go. That's about 45 minutes of racing left to go. We're on a very, very fast time, I would have to say here, because we are on the 40 kilometer an hour average speed, which will put the riders finishing in Liège at around about 4:45. It's 4 o'clock local time, and Well, the 98% chance of precipitation has come true because it's actually raining on the finishing line here. Fortunately for the riders out on the course as they make their way through Sprimont, it's not raining at all. It's nice and dry, which makes it nice and dry. But unfortunately, we have seen some very nasty accidents. Simon Gerrans, Australian defending champion of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he went down not once but twice. Nicolas Roach, who was one of the leaders for Team Sky, he also went down. Pierre Roland, the big hope for France, Team Europe car, he was involved in that accident too. Some very, very big names went down hard in that crash. And sadly, it was right up towards the front end of the main field. Chavez and Scarponi still lead, and here they are. Now, this is nice of the organisation, by the way, just to let you know that this climb is not a categorised climb. But if you've been in the saddle for close to 5.5 hours of racing, well, it is a very nasty little climb. That's Chavez on the front, 25 years of age. Part of the renaissance, I'd have to say, of Colombian cycling. There's a lot of very good Colombian cyclists starting to come back through, and very much of that has been done by the Colombian and Boyacá and the regions down towards the southern part of Colombia, which are really starting to get behind. There's the break, as we can see, the breakdown of the race. Tête de la course, 19 seconds back to Sivtsov. Here he is, national time trial champion of Belarus, and about 30 seconds. Looking over his shoulder, that's not a sign of confidence, and that's why. Because he's been chased down there very, very dramatically by Team Katusha. Wow, this is pretty serious now, because you've got Katusha in the red and white jersey. The dark blue jersey, there, number 11, is Alejandro Valverde. Another one of the nasty little uncategorized climbs. They've turned around at Sprimont, and they're now setting fair for the next climb of the day, which looms on the horizon, the Côte de la Roche aux Faucons, the Rock of the Falcons. The gap is not very much at all. There's at 29 kilometers to go. The two leaders have a 25-second advantage, but when we pull back to give a little bit of a relationship shot, that main field has got the two leaders in their sights quite firmly now. They know just exactly how much effort. Well, you see the teams that are taking this seriously. Katusha, that's for Rodriguez. Movistar, that's for Alejandro Valverde. The lime green fluorescent yellowy color of Tinkoff Saxo, that is for Kreuziger. Never far away, turquoise jerseys of Astana, Vincenzo Nibali. He said that he was going to go from a long way out, but the team have started the aggression a long way out from the finish line. That's Valverde in about 6th position. Jose Harada, number 13, number 18, a little bit further back, Giovanni Visconti, formerly Italian national champion. Right behind him is Valverde. 84 is Kreuziger. There, number 31, looking very comfortable, I have to say, Vincenzo Nibali, just alongside them, full sang. They could be a very interesting pair a little bit later on. A lot of riders from Ethics Quickstep. Rider in there from Sky as well, Lars Peter Nordhaug. Getting into the outskirts of Liège, the umbrellas are starting to go up, and of course the rain is starting to come down. It's very, very damp out here on the finishing line. 3 leaders. So joining the 3 leaders at 16 kilometers to go, 10 miles of racing plus 1, that's 3 leaders. Fulsang makes the junction. Tommy Voeckler, all over his machine, battling with it now, coming across there very smartly. You know, you can never discount Ethics Quickstep. They're a fantastic team, and there's Alaphilippe is coming across there, number 22. So the gap, the official gap, is 13 seconds. Jakob Fulsang, Astana, just sitting on the back. He's made the effort to come across the gap. Giancarlo Caruso of Katusha. There is Roman Kreuziger. He's looking for a top 5 position now. There's a big, big battle coming on here now. Bardet goes through. Rui Costa. Well, there's no response behind. They're also making the move now is the man that we thought would do so, Danny Moreno, just getting onto the back of that group. Number 18, Giovanni Visconti. 22, now this is a nice move. Julien Alaphilippe, the rider from France and Ethics Quickstep, one of those rare French riders expatriating himself to get himself onto a top classics team to learn the trade of riding the one-day races. So that's Rui Costa. 68 is Moreno. Rui Costa there, number 91, former world champion. The 3 former world champions are in the race. So the gap, 13 seconds. This is the chase group now. These are the 3 leaders. This is the top. They've gone over the top of the Côte de la Roche au Faucon. A little bit of flat road here now, a big fast road. They'll swing over to the left-hand side. They'll start to drop down. And once they drop down, they go down a massive big 4-lane highway to the outskirts. They'll see the Standard de Liège football ground just in the bottom, and they'll be touching speeds of 80 to 85 kilometers an hour. There are the 5 chasers. More riders scuttling across now, as we can see a long line of the main field, but there's still that very, very difficult climb to go down towards the end. Well, it's Nibali in person now who's made the move. He's seen the race starting to unfold. He wants this win. He had said that he was going to move a long way from the finishing line. He thought he was going to move somewhere around about the Côte de la Redoute. His team actually attacked inside of 80 kilometers to go to the finish on the slopes of the Côte de Haute-Levée. Visconti, number 18, former Italian national champion. Conti broke his tibia in a nasty crash in 2014 at the Santos Tour Down Under, bounced his way back, and he in fact finished 9th in the Grand Prix, the Classic at San Sebastian towards the end of that year. Now he's still trying to find that little bit of form that gave him the National Road Racing Championships on 2 occasions, in fact, in 2010 and 2011. I'm not going to let Vincenzo Nibali out of the pack quite as easily as that. A little bit of calm. Everybody now, you see what's happening now is everybody's starting to watch each other. Thomas Voeckler. You know, the funny thing is, just talking to a couple of the French commentators before the start, and Thomas Voeckler, although he's a great man to have as the captain, he actually hasn't won a race since 2013, and that was the Tour de Poitou-Charentes. Seconds, these 3 leaders now. That's Paulo Caruso, just on the back, Roman Kreuziger. But there's some very big names in the group behind. It's a fast descent now into the outskirts of Liège, across the bottom, over the Meuse or the Maas, depending on which language you want to be speaking, and then into the small town which is right at the foot of the climb, the town of Tilleur, Saint-Nicolas, and that's where the climb starts in earnest. Voeckler over on the right hand side. Gilbert, all of a sudden he appeared to have been in a little bit of difficulty, but that is Gilbert taking up the pace. Stibar takes up the line behind him now in 3rd position. Alejandro Valverde, well, I think he'll just be sitting there keeping a very close eye on affairs. He will just he will have to play the waiting game. Voeckler, he's right onto the motor. This guy knows every trick in the book. He's going to be 36 years of age, Thomas Voeckler, in June. He's won 55 races throughout his professional career. Probably one of his most famous rides, though, was when he held the yellow jersey in the Tour de France for 10 days. He's worn the yellow jersey for a total of 20 days, and he is the darling of Francis. A lot of riders regard him as being an old-fashioned rider because he races the same way some of the great champions used to do many, many years ago. He doesn't calculate. He just, if it feels good in his gut, he goes for it. Stibar looks over his shoulder. He's going to sacrifice himself this afternoon. He's another rider with great form as Stibar, but he's just thinking about the team. And that's why at the end of a race like this, Ethics Quickstep could be the team that comes up with the goods. Kurkovsky has been looking very comfortable all of the time in the World Champions jersey. And he may be, that's him actually, in fact, just moving up into 3rd place. He may well have had a little chat. Well, it's not in 3rd place, he's a bit further back. Voeckler is in 2nd. Stibar may well have had a quick word. He was 2nd in Paris-Roubaix. a bit more, a bit older, 29 years of age. Steve Cummins, hat off to Steve Cummins. There he is, just sitting at the back there, number 201, MTN Kubeka. In front of him, Peter Wheeling. He's hanging on the back of this group, hovering all of the time, and the rain now coming onto the shoulders of these riders. We're 12 kilometers to go. 21 seconds the advantage, and 21 seconds, well, that's about 350 meters. Nasty little right hand. You can just see the football stadium off in the distance there. Stibar, will he go around this corner, I should think, as if it's in the dry, because this man is a multi-world champion in cyclocross. That's the part of the sport where you race across fields and through forests and take the bike off, throw it over your shoulder, run up a hill, jump back on, down the other side. Comes to bike handling. He is one of the top men in conditions like this. It's not a very big group, and I'm sure it will get reduced in numbers a little bit more as we get close to this. Cummins around the corner. And look to see what happened to Stibar. Here he is. Look at that face on him. He really is reveling in these conditions. But again, I'm not sure that he's riding for himself here this afternoon. I'm sure, well, you know what's happened here. He's got onto the back of the motorbike. Is much too close here. He's taking advantage there of the slipstream. And in fact, he was so close. In fact, he pulled himself away from the Orica Green Edge rider there. The motorbike really should have not been quite that close. It's such a big pull when you can get onto the back wheel. But it's not the rider's responsibility. It's the motorbike's responsibility to get out of the race. 175, Sebastian Reichenbach, the Swiss rider on IAM Cycling. Again, we're now just going through. This is the small town of Tilleur. 12 seconds is the gap. Now there's the Standard de Liège. That is the River Meuse. And Standard de Liège, the football stadium just on the far side. Got beaten 1-0 yesterday, if you're a soccer fan, by Charleroi. However, Anderlecht, the Belgian team from Brussels, on the other hand, well, they won their game 5-1, and one of the people in the crowd was a certain Eddy Merckx, who's won this race on 5 occasions. The king of the classics, the king of cycling, Eddy Merckx. I suppose if there wasn't a king of Belgium, he'd probably be the king here as well. But he's a great supporter, not only of Liège, Bastogne Liège, but of Anderlecht Football Club. So can Kreuziger do it? When I spoke to Sean Yates this morning, he said it's all for Roman Kreuziger, and Kreuziger is looking for a top 5 finish after 11th place in the Flèche Wallonne Stibar. And looking down, there's the world champion in about 9th position, Vincenzo Nibali in 7th position in the turquoise jersey with the Italian flag around the middle. Tricky part of Liège, the outskirts of Liège. This is a real industrial area. This is where the heart of the steel industry used to be. It's very depressed in this day and age with the closing down of the steel industry, which is just alongside the River Meuse. They used to bring plenty of coal up in the barges. You can get on the barge here and go right the way up to the North Sea through Maastricht. Maastricht, if you cross the border, is about 40 kilometres, only 20 or so kilometres away from the Dutch border. As we're back with the 3 leaders now. Next on the horizon, they're about 2 kilometres now away from the climb. Can Roman Kreuziger create this? Well, there's the Italian flags. We are in Belgium. I have to remind you, this is Liège, Bastogne Liège, but this is probably the most Italian part of Belgium. Now, just looking, there's Michael Kurkovsky. There he is looking over. So they're all looking back to see what sort of damage has been done by Stibar. Powerful rider there on the front in the white jersey, Stibar. His win this year came in the Strada Bianchi. He's 29 years of age, 7th in the Het Nieuwsblad, 2nd in the Grand Prix E3, 9th in the Tour of Flanders, 2nd in Paris-Roubaix. He's had a great classics campaign so far. Number 22 there, watch out, Julien Alaphilippe. Could be the revelation of the early part of this season. Alaphilippe has been a pro since 2013. He got signed up. You know, Patrick Lefebvre of the Ethics Quick Step squad has got a very good eye. Now here's the turn. This is the start of the climb. They've made the right-hand bend. They are now looking for the. It's a very short climb, short and sharp and steep. It comes in at 1.2 kilometers at 9% the gradient. A kilometer to the top now. Valverde, there he is, right on his wheel. There is Dani Moreno, zigzagging across the road. A little bit further back, I'm looking to see if I can spot the shape of Nibali. Is in about 8th or 9th position. He's on the wheel of the world champion, Michael Kurkovsky, slipping at the back here. Now there's a big surprise there, because we haven't talked about him at all. Wilco Kelderman of Team Lotto Jumbo slipping backwards. Nibali, there he goes, there he is, the national champion of Italy, makes the move. Alaphilippe right on his wheel, the young Frenchman, number 22. Nibali, he wants this race. I don't know if you remember, just a couple of years ago, the move coming now from Team Sky. There's the 3 leaders. It looks as if before we get to the top of this climb, it's all going to come back together. Kreuziger doesn't want to get caught now. He's the man right in the middle. Nibali, very happy to be where he is. Philippe Gilbert, number 51. You can see the bandage on that right elbow. His crashing in a race like Flèche-Wallonne is not the ideal preparation for a great classic like this. Gilbert is out of contention. Kreuziger keeps the tempo going. Trying to stay in contact. A little bit further forward there is one of the teammates, and that is Sammy Sanchez. Thomas Voeckler, number 131, number 42. A bit further up is David Formolo, Team Cannondale Garmin, but it's still Kreuziger has got the power. He doesn't want anybody to recover. Alaphilippe is a rider in there for Ethics Quick-Step. Well, Fulsang, it's still pretty comfortable. Those 3 riders in the first 3 positions are the riders who started this climb. They kept the tempo going. Alaphilippe is up there into 2nd, 4th position. Next rider coming up there for Team Sky, Sergio Henao, the Colombian rider on Sky. Well, they're all moving now. Paulo Caruso, the bearded rider from Katusha, he's thinking about the men behind him. Dani Moreno is still in that group. So too is his own teammate, Joaquim Rodriguez. Viva over to the right-hand side, a rider from AG2R, also in there for AG2R, keeping themselves nice and present at the front end of the main field. Roman Bardet was pretty comfortable. The damage, this is a nasty little climb. Steve Cummings, number 201, he's slipping back now. He's been in contention for a long time. Caruso, they are doing the damage now. They get rid of riders one by one. Oh, that's Fulsang. This is the steepest part of the course. Alaphilippe sees the move from Fulsang there in the Astana jersey. Look at the faces of these riders. It really is getting steep now. Now's the time to throw out the sandbags if you can. You really have to hang on over the top. The Côte de Saint-Nicolas, the last climb of the day, the last categorized climb of the day. Little bit of respite. Don't give up now, because there's 5 kilometers to go to the finish. 3 miles of racing. Kurkovsky, well, the world champion has disappeared from this group. So too, slipping away is Tony Galopin, the Frenchman there, 101. Got to be careful now though, because as we start to get towards the finish line, these roads are nasty roads. There's some parts of it slightly cobbled, a little bit of tarmac to smoothen it. But Galopin, can he recover now? In front of him, Kurkovsky. I thought this was going to be a day for Kurkovsky, but maybe it's not going to be. Sky rider is Kirienka just on the back. You see how precarious these riders are going around these corners. Those cobbles and conditions like this are quite precarious. Caruso, look at him. Alaphilippe, well, remember that name, because Alaphilippe, just 22 years of age, is a young Frenchman I think we're going to be talking about for quite some time to come. Looking over his shoulder. They've got the group reducing numbers now. It's not a massive group. Caruso, Bardet, over on the left-hand side. He's not scared of reputations. This is a guy who could very well be the next big star for French cycling, as Bardet now makes the move. He's done nothing so far this year. He's got the gap. He's got a little bit of a gap on everybody else. He was 10th in Liege, Bastogne Liege last year, but they're not giving him too much of a free ride. Caruso, with the beard from Katusha, nails him back. Alejandro Valverde is in this group. He's just hovering. He will play the waiting game. If it comes down to the sprint, he's probably the rider with the fastest sprint at the end of a day like this. He's a great rider. 2nd in this race last year. Bardet made the move, but they nailed him back. Kreuziger is still there for Team Tinkoff Saxo Bank. 10, 11 riders maximum in this group. Caruso looks over his shoulder. He knows he's got a teammate. He knows he's got Danny Moreno 3 or 4 back. That's Moreno there, number 68. Moreno quite happy to sit on the wheel there of his teammate. 71, that's Pozzovivo. There's a rider in there from MTN Kubeka, and they managed to make the junction too, so that's great. MTN carrying on with a great season, like the season they've had very early on. Wild card selection for the Tour de France. Louis Menches is the South African, just on the back. A fantastic ride by Louis Menches. 3 kilometers to go. There's a little bit of a recovery there. There's 2 or 3 riders a bit further back, but now this is the crunch. Once they start to line up, 3 kilometers to go. Next group on the road. Kirienka's in this group. Tony Galopin of France is in this group. He's the rider from Lotto Belisol. A little bit further forward, just in front of him, the rider from Saxo is Kieselowski. Croatian. This is the group 11. Next group on the 2.5 kilometers to go. It's still anybody's race as they go over the cobblestones. Treacherous conditions after 6 hours of riding. They left at 10:30 this morning. It's now 4:40 in the afternoon. Caruso is sacrificing himself. You've got 2 riders, 2 teammates of Caruso's in this group, a little bit further back behind him. They don't want anybody to be given the chance to recover, but you know what? That small group behind of 3 or 4 riders have certainly not yet given up. Oh, you got to be careful going around these corners. Those white bands on these roads in Belgium are very slippy in conditions like this. So Caruso sacrificing himself. Up there right now as well for AG2R is Bardet in 2nd position. Oh, in fact, there's Nibali's in that group behind. He's got to try and get back into this group now. If they slow down a fraction, you will see the return of Vincenzo Nibali. Number 71, Pozzovivo. Caruso throwing caution to the wind, riding like a madman now because he knows he's got 2 very good chances behind him. Well, Bardet looks comfortable. Fulsang is still there. Alejandro Valverde looks over his shoulder. You can see Danny Moreno. Alaphilippe is a little bit further back. Menches there on the back for MTN Kubeka. To see if I can see the return of, yes, there, look at this. Now it could well be the return of Vincenzo Nibali. Nibali has managed to get himself back in there, as has Peter Winning, the rider from Orica Green Edge. It's a big group. There are no friends in this group for the man on the front, Alejandro Valverde. Looks into the face of Danny Moreno. A little bit further back in this group as well is number 61, Joaquim Rodriguez. There he is. 2:05, Louis Menches. 84, Kreuziger. Moreno makes the move. Menches on his wheel straight away. Will anybody help Alejandro Valverde? Valverde has to assume control of this group right now. He's got to do all of the work himself. He doesn't want another group to come back. Looking at 1 kilometer to go now. We're into the final kilometer. Now, Menches in 2nd position. It's a long, this is a long kilometer. You know, as kilometers go, it drags right the way up to the top. Fulsang on the wheel of Valverde. Valverde's not giving anybody any freedom at all here this afternoon. Still Purito Rodriguez in the Katusha jersey. He's just looking back to see if his teammate can pull it off here this time. Nobody wants to help Valverde. They know how powerful this man is when it comes down to the sprint. Kreuziger, number 84, 61, Rodriguez just sitting there waiting to see if anybody else is going to make the move. Pozzovivo just at the back there, 116 in there is Lars Peter Nordhaug, the Norwegian rider on. Is this going to be, look at that, this is the move. They are starting to stretch it out. Nobody's moving. They're all looking at Alejandro Valverde saying, Valverde, you're the fast man, you've won this race 2 times before. You want it, mate? You make the move. You go and catch your Spanish compatriot, Daniel Moreno. Number 61 won't make any move at all. Valverde says, right, well, I'm not bothered about this. I've got to do it. 500 meters to go. He knows he's got to get to that corner. Perito makes the move. He wants to get across onto the wheel of Valverde. Valverde assuming control here now. He knows he's got to nail back Danny Moreno. He's out of the saddle. He's going to give everything he's got. He doesn't want to finish second in this race again. He's got on his wheel Joaquim Rodriguez. Right across. It's going to be two riders from Katusha against Alejandro Valverde. Perito, Rodriguez will not move. They're not far from the corner. Here it is. Around the corner, everybody comes back. Alaphilippe has made the junction there as well. Kreuziger's there. Romain Bardet has got into the group. Pozzo Vivo, this is all about this final charge of the line, but has Alejandro Valverde got anything left in those legs of his now as he makes the move? He comes up through the middle. He's one of the best sprinters in the world. He's getting challenged on the left-hand side, and it looks as if it's going to be Alejandro Valverde. He makes it win number 3 as he comes across the line, just ahead of Alaphilippe, the French rider there from Ethics Quick-Step. But, you know, I have to take my hat up. You've got to say that Alejandro Valverde deserved that victory there this afternoon, because he was the man who chased down Vincenzo Nibali coming across the line now. He wasn't able to quite hold on there this afternoon. And Paulo Caruso at the back end of that group with the beard, he's the man who made the move a long way out from the finish. But the man who wins this race for a 3rd time is Alejandro Valverde. The world champion coming up now. Looks as if he's got Tony Gallopin for company, Mikhail Kurkovsky. He'll have a chance to come back and win this race sometime in the future. Vasily Kirienka is the rider from Team Sky coming forward, but those final few kilometers really did start to split this race to pieces. There's Kurkovsky coming in, just on the wheel of Tony Gallopin. Next riders come in, Venender crossing the line. And also just seen coming in there, Steve Cummings of MTN Quebec. There, Philippe Gilbert. Well, it was a tough ride for Gilbert. A nasty way to prepare a race like this. A very, very difficult crash in the Flèche Wallonne just a couple of days ago. And for Philippe Gilbert, he's participated in this race 13 years in a row. So I think we can say well done, Philippe, and hopefully we'll see you again next year. Well, Valverde was challenged, but he was pretty much in control in that race there. There he is, Alejandro Valverde. He gets the victory, and there's the rider who is second. And watch out for that Frenchman. Alaphilippe, I think he's going to be one of the big stars of the future. He's 22 years of age. On the other end of the scale, though, Alejandro Valverde, well, he's not the spring chicken. He's 35. Well, funnily enough, he was 36 years of age yesterday, April the 25th. Valverde. Now look at this move. Rodriguez over there. Alaphilippe trying to come up through the middle. Rui Costa is 91. Alaphilippe comes up alongside Rodriguez. He gets himself second. Rodriguez gets third. Rui Costa, former world champion, gets fourth. Master move there. Kreuziger, he's up in the mix. Danny Moreno over on the left-hand side. It was almost the victory for him here this afternoon. And Nordhaug is the rider from Team Sky who gets himself a top 10 finish here in Liege, Bastogne, Liege. Finished second in the same time as Simon Gerrans in the Santos Tour Down Under a couple of years ago, having won the big stage to the top of the Olwalanga Hill. But this is one of the monuments of the sport where he's crossing the line in first place. Alaphilippe came back from a long way, but the master of that sprint was, of course, Alejandro Valverde. Always consistent, Valverde. That's his 6th victory of the season, and he adds that to the mid-season victory in the Flèche Wallonne. So in a week of racing, Alejandro Valverde was second in the Amstel, first in the Flèche Wallonne, and here's confirmation of the result. Kreuziger, well, I spoke to Sean Yates this morning. He said we're looking for a top 5 finish. Well, there you are, Sean. 5th place for Kreuziger. 6th place for Romain Bardet. Sergio Henao of Team Sky was up there in 7th. Pozzo Vivo in 8th. So big names up in the top of that leaderboard. The rain came down towards the end over Liege, Bastogne, Liege, which closed the curtain now on the early season spring classics. It's the start 10:30. 6 hours and 20 minutes ago into the heart of the Ardennes. The clouds didn't put a dampener on this race, which was dominated in the early part by an 8-man breakaway. But when we started to get into the climbs like the Côte de Stockeux, the Haute Levée, the Team Astana started to lay down the foundations of what they thought would be a victory for their man Vincenzo Nibali. The 3-man breakaway of Kangert, Scarponi and Chavez looked as if they were keeping plenty of pressure on the race for a long period of time, but maybe this crash here on the way down to the Côte de la Redoute changed the overall results, because it took out not only Simon Gerrans, it took out Nicholas Roach, it took out Nathan Haas. A lot of big names were delayed in this crash. And it also took out Dan Martin. A little bit further on, before he even started the Côte de la Redoute, last year's defending champion Simon Gerrans was on the ground again. The 3-man breakaway, Kangert, Scarponi and Chavez survived for a long time. But as they approached the Côte to the Roche-au-Faucon, it was all back together. And that's when Roman Kreuziger on the Côte de Roche-au-Faucon decided he was going to take the bull by the horns, joined very quickly by Paulo Caruso. A little bit later on, the rider who came across as they started the Côte de Saint-Nicolas was Jakob Fuglsang. And all of the big men came to the front on this final climb. Alejandro Valverde was pretty much in control. He was like the chief of the orchestra, the conductor, just keeping an eye on everybody's move, marking them all down. As they came inside of the final kilometre, it looked very much as if Danny Moreno might create the surprise. Locked onto the wheel of Alejandro Valverde was Joachim Rodriguez, but making a dash to the line over on the left-hand side was the young rider from France, Alaphilippe, who got himself 2nd place. Another podium position after a very good classic season for Ethics Quickstep. Valverde was not really challenged at all in that sprint. Rodriguez 3rd, 4th for Rui Costa. So, La Maison du Finance, the finance building, just finished towards the end of last year. And there is the railway station in Liège. The TGV takes you right the way down to Paris. Valverde now takes the lead in the UCI World Tour, ahead of Richie Porte and Alexander Kristoff, with Paris-Roubaix winner John Degenkolb in 4th position. World champion Mikhail Kwiatkowski in 6th place. Geraint Thomas with a very good, strong start to the year in 8th. What about this? Nairo Quintana in 10th. Beautiful station there. It's on the site of the older Liège railway station built up. And I wonder if we get a chance here to listen in to Valverde.
Sí, es increíble.
It's incredible.
No me lo creía. Estaba viendo que se había ido.
I felt pretty good during the race. And then in the end, when we saw Danny Moreno go, I knew I had to go. I knew I had to react.
Y guardarme siempre una bala para al final poder sprintar.
And then I just waited for the finish and the sprint. You were one of the big favourites. Was that not difficult?
El grande favorito.
It's difficult to be the big favourite.
Todo el mundo iba controlándome mucho, pero el equipo estaba muy bien.
My team did a great job and they controlled it.
Bien y hemos podido ganar.
And then I'm happy to win.
Sí, segundo en Amstel, primero Flecha, primero.
We're 2nd in the Amstel, 1st in the Flèche, and 1st in Liège, Bastogne, Liège. That's good. Well, it certainly was. He was the big pre-race favourite. He looked good throughout the whole of the race. The team were on form for him. They looked after him. They put him into the right place at the right time. And he came up with the victory that he wanted. Just watch this again. He made the effort to chase down Danny Moreno there on the left-hand side. And then when he saw the finishing line open up in front of him, he turned up the gas. He knew then that he had to take the race by the horns. A big acceleration coming up through the middle there. And for him, he was not really challenged. He was the fastest sprinter in that group. That's Henao over on the left-hand side, the Colombian rider from Team Sky. For Valverde, he is a class act, Alejandro Valverde. As I said, his 6th victory of the season, the 116th victory since he turned professional back in 2002. And Alaphilippe, well, as I say, I think Julien Alaphilippe will be talking about him a lot more over the next few years. And there's Bernard Hinault, the last and still the last French winner of Liege, Bastogne Liege, and that was way back in 1980 when only a handful of riders managed to get themselves down towards the finish line. The Meuse or the Maas, and if you go downstream, you'll end up going through Maastricht and make your way right the way down towards the North Sea. Looking on down there, that's the Palais des Princes Évêques, or the Prince Bishops. It's a beautiful palace. It goes back to the 16th century, and that's where the race started from 6.5 hours ago. Beautiful downtown in Liège, which has been renovated quite dramatically over the last few years. Well, they made the long journey up from Spain to come and see this victory. 116th victory of Alejandro Valverde since he turned professional back in 2002. Maybe that's the face of the future of French cycling. I can hear the anthem now cranking itself up for the presentation of the top three men, top three place getters of the 2015 101st edition and running of Liège, Bastogne Liège, finishing in the little commune of Ans on the outskirts of Liège. Bernard Hinault over on the left-hand side, third place for Joaquim Rodriguez. That's Jean-François Pecheux on the left-hand side. For many, many years, sat in the red car at the Tour de France, winding up his final few races before going into retirement. And there is third place getter Joaquim Rodriguez. 3 wins so far this year, including the overall victory in the Tour of the Basque Country. 47 wins in total. Turns 40 in a couple of weeks' time. Yellow flowers, maybe a sign that he would like to grab the yellow jersey a little bit later on in the year. Let's listen to the crowd now for Julien Alaphilippe, 22 years of age. What a week of racing this young man has had. 7th in the Amstel Gold Race, 2nd in the Flèche Wallonne, and 2nd in the oldest classic of them all, Le Doyen Liège, Bastogne Liège, Alaphilippe. He's French, but he rides for a Belgian team. And of course, pretty impressive for this man, because he'll be coming up for the first time in his career to take the victory in a Liège, Bastogne Liège. Luik, Bastogne Luik in Flemish. And a few words of advice there for Julien Alaphilippe from Bernard Hinault over on the left-hand side. Now, the last man that we're waiting for. Turned professional back in 2002. Valverde. Popular victory. When you're a man like Alejandro Valverde in a race like this of 6.5 hours, almost 6.5 hours of racing, you have to bide your time, you have to wait, you have to just be patient and wait for the race to unfold and make the moves when they count. Is exactly what he did. When he saw Danny Moreno go, he didn't panic, he just waited. He waited to make sure that he had enough energy to pull back Danny Moreno himself, and was still able to control as they took the left-hand bend and into the finishing. So there are your place getters, Valverde, Alaphilippe and Joaquim Rodriguez, and there's his third trophy. So, as we see the closing podium there, Valverde at 36 years of age, Alaphilippe in second place at 22 years of age. That young man now will start to dream about winning this greatest of all of the classics, Liège, Bastogne Liège, joined there in third place by another Spaniard, Joaquim Rodriguez, who has been very consistent so far this year. 6 hours, 14 minutes and 20 seconds through some of the hardest racing that this monumental classic Liège, Bastogne Liège can throw at you.